Hoople's Cat presents.
What's the time? It's time to get ill. What's the time? It's time to get ill. So what's the time? It's time to get ill. Now what's the time? It's time to get ill.
So, prepping is a broad church. It comprises many different types of people and people from all sorts of races, religions and political persuasions. But one thing that's definitely a factor is that prepping and politics is a thing. It's a theme. Some of the most successful prepping videos entirely talk about absolutely nothing to do with prepping, but talk about current political events. Why is this? So the main reason people are interested in politics is because they feel that political actions have a direct impact on their ability to thrive and survive in the current world. That's one of the main reasons, I think, hence the interest in gun control and liberalization of gender and sexuality. Most of this stuff has got almost nothing to do with prepping as such, but it's very keen and people are very interested in it. There's nothing wrong being in the world and being interested in the world, and I think for preppers, one of the things that we do is that we've examined the world and by fear and thought decided that the current world cannot survive without considerable or huge changes which will be adverse for us and our families, so we prep to mitigate or avoid those changes that we fear may come. And politics is an avenue where we can mitigate some of the things we were actually worried about. So it's kind of normal and natural that we would be focused on politics. So one of the logical fallacies and inconsistencies of many of these prepping videos is they'll take something like kneeling at the anthem and inflate that and conflate that with prepping, and it's really got nothing to do with prepping, right? Whether people kneel during the national anthem or not really isn't going to have any effect on you as a person or as a prepper in any reasonable way, and yet those videos are very, very much sought after, very, very much watched. And one of the issues with that is that politics in general, and I am guilty of this, politics in general is something I'm interested in, and I put videos up occasionally and make comments occasionally about prepping and politics, but realistically speaking, I think most of us know in our minds, if not in our hearts, that in a global SHTF, a global failure of society that is ongoing, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, a liberal, a libertarian or a Green Party member or a Nazi or a communist or an anarchist, it actually isn't going to have that big an effect on how you prep. It may have an effect on how you organize your groups, may have an effect on how you interact with other people around you, but in of itself, politics, as far as I'm concerned, will not survive contact with SHTF in its current form, and yet people are very, very interested in it. Well, at this point you should be saying, whoopils. Politics can directly cause SHTF. That's why I'm interested in it. Yeah, I agree it could, but I disagree it would. And what I mean by that is obviously politics that, say, France decides to launch a nuclear strike against America because they've really had enough of Trump, and that triggers a nuclear war. That obviously is a political act that becomes a military act that triggers a global SHTF. Say if Pakistan or India go at it, or Iran and Israel go at it with nuclear weaponry, even conventional weaponry could spill over and cause a societal collapse in America. You're not as safe as some people think they are just because you're on a continent, not in the global world. But where does that leave you? I mean, things like the United Nations planning to come in, all 60,000 of them, and steal your guns from 350 million Americans, of which probably 150 million of them are armed, is highly unlikely, and yet those sorts of videos are very well known. And it gets worse than that. I mean, I made this point before, I still have not seen an apology video from any of you guys online who made videos in 2016 about Jade Helm, about the fact that Jade Helm was cover for the UN to come in and install Obama as president for life. Absolute nonsense, came out of nowhere, people made stuff up, people lied online, and yet nobody had the courage, or I would dare say the political strength, to then appear on camera and say, I misread the situation. So I'm not targeting people I'm putting up, it's just that I found their stuff online and I'm using it because I like imagery in videos, because I'm kind of boring to look at, despite the hair. But when you are watching a political prepping video, how critical are you of the content you're receiving? Are you actually looking at the content in a critical way? Are you just accepting what I, or Canadian Prepper, or JJ Johnston are saying, or Brad from Full Spectrum Survival, or anybody else? Now, there are much more political preppers than that online, and I don't watch them because I don't find them healthy. I find some preppers online that when I watch them, their content, applicable content for prepping, is like nothing, and most of it's plagiarized and wrong, and they have huge channels, like in the 50,000s, and people watch them all the time and think what they're saying is true, and they talk about politics in a very, very specific way over and over and over, and they actually repeat the content over and over and over as well, which makes me kind of wonder why people are watching them. But they are, because people want to feel, they want to feel that their opinion, their political stance has an effect. They don't want to feel powerless. It's one of the main reasons we prep, is that we want to have some power, some self-control in a very chaotic and frightening world. And politics makes us feel that way. So leaving aside Canadian politics, I am Canadian, and looking at American politics, I'm going to put up a few GIFs just for amusement's sake, and I'm not trying to take a political stance here. But you've got to remember that every time you see an image that says something, that image will embolden itself and embrazen itself upon your consciousness. And however fake or false the imagery is, over time that will become a part of your reality. Because we construct our reality, but we co-construct our reality with other people. And prepping is a dangerous phenomenon with politics, is that it's very easy to have arguments and wars and flames and aggression with people by having political points of view that are different to or disagree with them. And again, that's insane. We're prepping for the end of the world, most of us. We're prepping for a huge and catastrophic destruction of current society. And yet, people can't listen to a socialist point of view, or a pro-healthcare, or a much stronger restriction of gun point of view, without getting angry. I have a nice job, and so does Kitty, and we're doing okay, and I don't need to do videos and get subs and clicks to get cash from advertisers, and that makes me happy. Mostly because I absolutely detest globalization in its current form and capitalism in its current form. I'm not going to get into the politics of that, and I hope I haven't triggered people into turning off at this point, because this is not going to be a political rant. What this is looking at why we feel as preppers that politics have any place in global disaster. I think it's a fascinating thing. You get tribes developing within the prepping community. There's some live streams I dare not ever go on, because I know as soon as I go on, some of those people who really hate me to the point of sending emails to other hosts about how dangerous I am, is not going to go down well. And it's a pity, because some of the actual channel hosts I would love to interact with more, but I can't, because I am other to some people and they push me out. Now, I've argued before, and I'll say it again, those people are the last people you want to be near with in SHTF, or in the now. But in SHTF, you definitely don't want to be near them, because they're dangerous. They're blind, they're ignorant, and they're aggressive. And their way or the highway. And frankly, most of them have very small intellect. They can't write very well, they can't spell very well, and yet they have no sense that they're somewhat illiterate, and parochial viewpoints are important. Now, in a civilized society, we should be able to listen to other people and accept what they're saying, even if we disagree with it. It's actually American Constitution enshrines that right, which is kind of amusing, because quite a few constitutionalist preppers online have no ability whatsoever to listen to a divergent point of view. They actually believe that America is under attack. Their idolized version of America is under attack politically. And a lot of them are actually planning to use guns and weaponry and violence to reassert, when the reset happens, their version of America that never actually existed. So where does that leave us? I think it leaves us where we're going to be, and it's not going to change the world, nor is this video going to change the world. But most of my subs have a more right-wing philosophy on prepping and politics than I do. And that's just great, and we have good conversations. Because I think we've got to the point where people go, Hooples is what he is. He's not trying to destroy me or my worldview or actually subvert my worldview, but he's trying to put his own point of view out there and alter his point of view based upon my point of view. And hopefully that's a mutual process, because none of us know anything about SHTF. None of us have actually experienced a global SHTF, and hopefully none of us ever will. And if it doesn't happen, we need to be able to function as adults in a world that's stressed and work with people from different points of view. Now, there's no money, there's no clicks, there's no advertising revenue in compromise and negotiation. There's only money in aggression and what unilateral points of view. And that's a pity, and this is why I don't like money. Though it's easy to say that when you have it, right? So what do you think? Do you think prepping and politics does have a place? In terms of the videos you watch, how many prepping videos did you watch this week, and how many of them had all or a substantial part of their content utterly unrelated to survival? It was only related to a political point of view, or dissecting a political point of view. Now, politics is fun, and I enjoy politics, and I'm not going to stop making political videos. For example, political, right? Climate change isn't political, it's scientific, but whatever. So, I mean, an example of this is the politicization of science, right? Either we're going to have an ice age, or we're going to have global warming, or we're going to have no change at all, or it's just normal, or it's not normal, or humans are causing it. All of that stuff's kind of irrelevant from a prepping point of view. In most parts of the world, with the exception of Puerto Rico, hi Louis, you don't really need to ignore the fact that you need to prep for severe cold winters and severe hot summers, irregardless of what you feel about the science of climate. Why does it trigger people to be angry? Why do people click on a video that's talking about how to prep for severe unstable climate, which I have put up? Why would they click on that anyway? And then having clicked on it, why would they say, I'm sorry, as soon as you mention climate change, I'm not watching the video? They're walling themselves off. And I'm, in a way, calling them out a little bit. I'm not saying watch every video I make, though you probably should. For example, Uncle Al, DieBullFrog79, he's got a very different interpretation of what is happening with climate instability. He, I think, very much agrees with me, and I very much agree with him, I know that for sure. The climate's becoming more unstable and will become devastatingly unstable in the near term. Nobody should pick a timeline, but in the near term, for very different reasons than I do. That doesn't mean I can't listen to his reasons. It doesn't mean that I can't ask questions about his reasons where I see a possible error with them, and he would get angry back at me. In fact, he did, and we had a great little chat, and it was good. And I think it's really good for other people to see chats like that between the left and the right, between climate yes, climate no, and actually see the interaction on an adult level and make their own opinions, because it's just a matter of opinion until it actually happens. So preppers are interested into prepping because preppers are frightened. We are frightened of severe change and threat to ourselves and our families. And I'm sorry, but fear-based prepping is what everybody gets into and does with prepping. Now, after a time, what happens is arrogance-based prepping comes in place, and you have a certain number of preps, and you've done a certain number of things, and you feel you are now safe, and that you will be fine, and your family will be fine, in a situation of grid down and absolute chaos, which is total nonsense. You're going to need a lot of luck, and no prep is going to survive contact with SHTF. SHTF is going to be so complicated, so individually specific, so locally specific, that all we can do is our best. All we can do is make some preparations mentally and skill-based and gear-based and food-based and water-based and security-based and you name it, and try to gameplay in our heads and hopefully with others, different types of scenario. So when you have a political scenario that prevents you from hearing a different take or a different approach to that scenario, and you close down listening to that, you're doing yourself and your family a disservice. Whether at the end of the day you agree with anything they say or not is irrelevant. But actually hearing it and understanding it might, because who knows what SHTF will be, there are no experts, might cause you to think differently. Alright, that's it from me. Remember, in SHTF, tomorrow will always be worse than today unless you prep. Toodles.
I've paid my dues time after time. I've done my sentence but committed no crime. And bad mistakes I've made a few.